All right, guys, welcome back to another video where we're going over the 100x pieces of content, content engine is what we're calling it. So in last week's video, we went over exactly what the content engine does, how many pieces of content we're producing right now on a monthly basis, which is around 946 pieces of content. Now this is completely automated, completely on autopilot, auto posts, and then it does everything. If you missed last week's video, go ahead and rewatch that. It'll be in the YouTube channel. But with that being said, the goal, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to go and rebuild the entire system from scratch, hopefully making it better, so that you guys all can build it all with me. And we can kind of go over everything step by step, my thought processes on how I plan on building this out and so forth. So there's a lot of things that kind of go involved into this. This is not going to happen within one day, as we mentioned last time. Like this is, you're pretty much building an entire system, right? From start to finish with multiple different inputs, multiple different outputs, and of course the auto posting feature and so forth. So today, of course, we're going to be starting to build out the foundation, the system that's necessary for this entire thing to work out. So let's get right in. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to start a completely from scratch brand new Airtable. So we're going to go ahead and put this aside for now and just go ahead and start from scratch. So if you don't know what Airtable is, just go to airtable.com, create an account. You can start on the free account. But yeah, go right ahead. We're going to go ahead and start from scratch right here. And you're going to see there's a lot of things involved when you first get in, a lot of nuances, a lot of like extra stuff that we probably don't need. I like to start everything from scratch by going ahead and just deleting pretty much every single column that we don't need right now, so we can start from scratch and kind of build towards this, right? Now, again, we're going to be doing make.com automations as well simultaneously, so keep that in mind. The thought process here is, what can we do, right, as far as the inputs and as far as the outputs? Now, a lot of people were probably maybe marketing agencies, maybe they're just, they have their own real estate business, maybe they're, have a specific business in mind that they want to do this. But my goal with building this out is not only to tailor it for my current software brand, which I'm already doing, but also at the same time my personal brand for growth, right? So it's really, really important to me to make sure that we have the ability of differentiating brands in case you do want to scale other things in the future. Now, just kind of going inside of this, like I like to start with everything that I need in general, right? By creating my basically skeleton structure, right? So at the end of the day, you're going to have stuff like content is like the main primary focus of this entire thing, right? Content is being produced, but at the same time, you might have, let's just say, another table that's specifically for your brands, right? And so we'll keep that as brands. And again, right now we're just building the structure and then we'll kind of add to it and so forth, right? We're going to need one specifically for whatever channels that we'll be posting to. So that's good to have. And then, of course, we're going to have, let's say, any specific custom actions that we plan on doing. And again, we're going to go more in depth into not just specific custom actions, but actual workflows that trigger multiple actions at one time. But we're going to go and call this one custom actions. And then, of course, we're going to go ahead and build another one for the actual workflows themselves, right? And again, workflows hold custom actions, and they're going to hold your brands, they're going to hold your channels, which ultimately ends up producing certain content, which the whole goal here is they're all going to communicate with each other so that when we do create a piece of content for, let's say, brand X, it will only create it and it'll only post it to the channels on brand X. So that's the goal with all this. So I'm just going to go ahead and like reorganize some things right now. Workflows are really important to look at, channels and brands doesn't really matter. I think, of course, custom actions are kind of like the last thing. Now, there's more things that we can add inside of here. If you really want to get in depth and start organizing, let's say, your tags, your hashtags, and stuff like that, we can do that. I'm going to leave that for a little bit later, since that's a little bit extra. Right now, this is kind of the core thing that we need right now at the moment. So what we're going to do differently, though, at this time around is we're really going to emphasize the brands, right? So we kind of get an exact, how should I say it, brand profile, right? So we can actually shorten our automations a bit, as well as we can be more efficient and kind of give our AI models exactly what they need to hear before they actually produce any content. So this is where, of course, you know, I'm going to do the same exact thing. We're just going to do some maintenance right now, kind of clear some things out, and then we'll kind of go from there, right? But the way I like to do it is might be a little bit different than most people when they build systems like this. I want to have, you know, a kind of like a numerical system that's going down, maybe, which we already have to the left, but at the same time, maybe we want to have, well, let's actually just start building the brands out real quick. So let's say there's built, right? And then of course there's Mo, right? This is my personal brand, right? And we're gonna go ahead and just label them for now as this, and then we're gonna label this one as well. Built is, we'll just leave built as is. You can name it whatever you want. So if you're following along and you're building this out with me, you probably want to put your own brands here and kind of follow through as we're kind of going through it. So the way I see it is we're gonna have multiple things, and so we can modify in the long run. So what I want to do is add some more fields, long text fields inside of here. And we're going to name them, right? Now, what exactly are we going to name them is solely dependent on how deep you want to go into your personal profile, right? And so in this example, what we're going to do right now is, well, we already got the brand name. We probably want maybe, I don't know, maybe a slogan, maybe a tagline, that maybe your brand follows, right? So we'll do something like this, tagline / slogan. We'll go ahead and create that. We might also want, let's add another one. Let's say maybe your specific product that you focus on / service. We can go with that. So like every time you communicate with, you know, your AI models, it knows exactly what you're offering and so forth. And again, right, like, you might not have a product or service, so maybe we can still add it in here. Maybe later on you can add one, or we can, of course, you know, just not include it at all. But hopefully I'm not misspelling things right now at the moment. I could care less. But next thing we're gonna do, let's say maybe you have a mission, right? Maybe you have a target audience. Maybe you have a voice, you know, maybe a certain call to action, certain hashtags. Like the goal is like we're gonna continue adding as much information as we can to really dive deep into what our brand really is at this moment, right? Again, notice how like we built so many things, you know, as far as like structure, but we're really focusing right now on the brand. Because what we really want at the end of the day is, let's say we send something to ChatGPT, or maybe we use a different AI model, you know, like DeepSeek or so forth, right? At the end of the day, we always want to reference these brand profile segments and stuff like that, so that it knows exactly how to tailor that message and so forth. So right now, let's go over maybe our audience. Go ahead and create that. Let's go over maybe our voice, right? And again, voice could be, you know, your tonality, your brand language, maybe emojis and stuff like that you know, you kind of go over. And again, you're going to tailor these based off your specific brand, right? Again, if it's not available, you can just go ahead and skip it. What's a few other things we could do? Maybe social proof, any specific links maybe you have, call to actions, emoji policies. There's a few things you could add in there. You know, like the more the better is the goal right here. And so what we're going to do is, let's just say, we'll do some call to action. I think that one's really important. Now, again, we might not always have a call to action on every single piece of content as well. So we actually might want to seclude this later on in our automations. And then same thing goes for, let's say, links, right? Let's go ahead and target long text. We can go ahead and put our links in here. and so forth. So I think that's a really good start right now. Again, you can go more, you can do less. That's completely up to you and how you want to build this out. But the goal here is every time we run, let's say, an automation, so let's just say I pull up a transcription to blog, for example, right? The ones we already have built out. Well, it's going to ask ChatGPT, right? And instead of us telling it manually that, you know, in this specific thing that our company is built, right? Like in this circumstance, instead we want it to auto-populate in there depending on the brand that we're trying to communicate. So we create less automations, everything's more automatic, and so forth, automated. So that's as far as the brand, right? So we always want all of these things to kind of communicate and go back into the channels, go back into our workflows and our custom actions, and of course our content at the end of the day. Now, you know, there's going to be a lot of different things when it comes to channels, right, as well. So you could have, you know, you can name your channels based off of, let's say, types of content, right, which is what I tend to do. And then that type of content usually has multiple social media channels. Or you can do instead and just name out the channels themselves and then kind of like select which channels you're going to be posting to. I don't like that because like that just means that you're going to have to produce a whole of a lot more content and be very specific when you can post pretty much a text content to both Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so forth, right? Versus an image post might go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, like they can all be posted on multiple platforms. So instead of per se like the channels, where I like to focus more on the nature of it, like what type of content it is, right? And again, right, like you might want to do it completely different. That it's completely up to you. But for the time being, the way I see it is we're going to have vertical videos, right? Which is more of, let's say, your shorts. Maybe you're gonna have shorts, you're gonna have TikToks, you're gonna have Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, Pinterest, you know, pretty much all of them right now take video, vertical video. And then of course you're gonna have as well, let's say, horizontal videos, maybe for your long form videos, like YouTube, where videos are a lot longer, maybe tutorial videos like this. So we can go ahead and put that as well, horizontal video. We'll just kind of put YouTube here because realistically, where are we going to post this? I mean, we could create tutorial videos for maybe our blogs or maybe our training centers and so forth. So that could be there as well. So maybe we won't just mention YouTube. You might have stuff that are very specific to, let's say, Twitter or Threads or something along that line, like shorter text. I kind of like to keep them together and just call these ones tweets, that's threads. I know they're smaller text paragraphs and they're not really long form text where they can't kind of handle. Like threads is not going to handle a long character count, right? Same thing with tweets. So keep that in mind, right? And then let's just go ahead and add a few more inside of here, right? And so we're going to have regular text posts, right? We're going to have text, let's say, and image posts that we end up might posting, and that again could be on Facebook, could be on LinkedIn, hell, it could even be on Twitter as well. And then let's say you have carousel, right? So carousel posts are, you know, like multiple images stacked on one post. Instagram is really good for this. Facebook doesn't really do it that well, just kind of puts all the photos all in one spot. So it does still work though. Let's say you might have blog posts. If you have a blog, if you're using Built already, you have the ability of creating a blog. So like that's available as well. So we'll just call this a blog post. You can do newsletters. You know, any piece of content that you think you could do is pretty much what we're going to put here, right? And you'll notice that the workflows will be kind of very similar, and then the custom actions will be very similar as we start building this out, right? And so let's say later on you want to do a podcast, right? So podcast posts, right? And in this case, you probably just mention specific podcast channels, which I'll show you in a second how we're going to do that. And then let's see, what else do we have? Maybe you're doing meme content, right? Yeah, we'll just call it posts since we're sticking with the posts right now. And so that's all the ones that you're doing right now. Now, again, I like to, kind of know what's going on. So for example, I want to know which ones I'm currently working on. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of rename these as like, are these the ones that are active that I'm currently working on? And so right now, we'll probably not do shorts at the moment, but we might do some simple stuff like the text, the carousel post, the blog post, the newsletter, and then meme, of course. The more the video content, we'll show you how to do that on a later video. So, but like that's the stuff that we want to kind of keep track of what we're working on right now, as well as like maybe try to keep yourself organized right here. What we want next is probably going to be like what platforms, right? Again, these platforms could be very specific to one channel, or it could be multiple. So we kind of just want to list these in a way like a multi-select, where we can select multiple, let's say channels at one time, multiple platforms, right? So let's just give this a name right here. We call this platforms. And so let's just say we have TikTok, we have IG Reels, right? And notice how I'm kind of separating IG Reels from regular IG, just because like that's more of the video format, and then the way the automations work are also different. So you got to keep that in mind. You have Facebook Reels, right? Let's say we have Pinterest. Pinterest does take a bit of time to set up. You got to get permission on their APIs. But we'll show you how to do that. YouTube Shorts. Notice how, again, it's not YouTube specific at the moment. Let's say we got YouTube directly. So let's go ahead and put that in. We have Twitter, or now it's called X, right? We have LinkedIn. We have regular Facebook. We have regular Instagram. If you're using Built, it's typically under lead connector. So there are some stuff that might go to that route instead. For example, your blogs and your newsletters. So we'll go ahead and put that lead connector. If you're doing stuff like podcasts, you might have like Anchor FM. You might have other podcasting platforms as well. For now, I'm not going to put those in. But I think that's good enough right now for us to start. Again, we can keep adding to these, right? And then what we want to do is basically just select them as far as like based off each one. So vertical videos or shorts, right? We're probably going to post to TikTok. We're probably going to post to IG Reels, Facebook, maybe Pinterest as well, and YouTube Shorts, right? And then of course you have horizontal videos might only get posted to YouTube, right? At the moment. If maybe you have some other format or other site you're using, you might post it there as well. Tweets, right? Well, of course, tweets and threads is going to be more of Twitter X, right? Unfortunately, threads right now, IG threads, which we didn't actually put in here. Let's go ahead and modify this real quick. And it's not exactly an option that you can do just right away. You might have to use another tool through automation to just take what's existing on Twitter and have it auto post on threads. For example, IFTTT, or I think that's what it's called. But we'll show you how to do that a little bit later as well. But we're going to put IG threads in here, since it is a format that is pretty similar to Twitter. So we go ahead and put that in here, and let's just go ahead and insert it as well. Now, text posts, again, text posts are going to be posted on, let's say, Facebook. It's going to be posted on LinkedIn. It might be posted also on Twitter. And, if you have other platforms as well, you can post text posts on, you can do that as well. And then text and image posts, we might only be doing, let's say, Facebook, Instagram, or Instagram. We might do LinkedIn. Where are we? LinkedIn. We might also do Pinterest. And text and image, pretty much is supported over there. You could also, let's see, at this point in time, I think that's good enough right now. we'll just keep it at that. Again, any other channels that you could probably think of, you can probably integrate, you know, as long as they have API access. We're going to be able to auto post to these platforms. Carousel posts, probably just Facebook, Facebook, LinkedIn as well, and Instagram. Like those are probably just going to be the best ones at the moment for that. I think Pinterest, they were going to have that feature. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get that one to work right now at the moment, but you know, it is what it is. So again, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and let's just say Pinterest for the heck of it right now. And then blog posts will probably just going to be on your lead connector, or maybe if you're using Wix, or if you're using WordPress or whatever, you would put that inside there at that time. Newsletters, same idea. We're just going to put lead connector at the moment because that's what I use. Podcasts, we didn't build that out. And of course, your memes could also be the same thing as your TikToks, your you know, pretty much everything that you already have. All right, let's say Twitter. It's going to be very similar to your vertical videos and your shorts. But Facebook Reels, we're going to have Pinterest, we're going to have YouTube Shorts. Okay, so did I miss one? I think I did. IG Reels. So we'll go ahead and put that one in there as well. But that's really a good start. Again, right? If you can think of other things, other pieces of content, like maybe you have an idea of taking your existing tweets and reformatting them and then putting your nice little image on the background, that would be kind of like a new type of piece of content. And again, you would decide what platforms they would go on. It's kind of up to you at that point how you want to do that, but for now we're going to go ahead and just keep it simple. Custom actions, right? Notice how I'm building like piece by piece here as I'm kind of building it out from scratch, right? Like there's no right or wrong way to build this as long as you have it kind of integrated, right? And so what we're doing right now is just the basics. None of this is automation yet. None of this is how should I say it, really in depth at the moment, right? So like any one of you guys right now can be building this along with me without having any coding skills, without anything, right? Everything right here is just literally, think of it as like an advanced spreadsheet. So we're pretty much just populating right now at the moment, right? But now here, custom actions are what's really going to fire our make.com, right? What's going to fire N8N if you were to substitute it, right? So it's really important to like note like what happens with your audio file, what happens with your video file here, what happens with a transcription, right? What happens with an idea, like what's happening, that transformation process, let's say, we call it custom actions, right? And so it's like, what's happening during that transformation? How does that happen, right? So that's where it becomes a little bit like more advanced at this point, right? So let's say we're gonna call these action name for now, and then we're gonna go ahead and list them out, right? So in the beginning, we're gonna have, let's say, idea, right, to, let's say, I like to do transcription, so I have like a big huge transcription that I could use later on, if I can spell. Let's say we're gonna have audio, right, to transcription. So basically we can take our audio file, let's say that's the type of person we are, we like making audio notes all the time. We can take an audio and transcribe it, and then we can take all those transcriptions later and convert it to other pieces of content. But you need to be able to convert that first. Let's say we have video to audio, since that's actually the easiest form. So video to audio, and then audio converts to a transcription. Let's say we have, let's move on to the next thing. Like, well, what are we actually going to do with those transcriptions at the end of the day? Are we going to take a transcription and create that blog, create that newsletter, create that tweet, create that short script, right? That carousel text? Like, what are we creating here at the moment, right? And so you got to think about it like this is a process, right? This is a transformation. So after we convert, let's say, the idea to a transcript, what do you want to happen, right? Or the audio to the transcript, what do you want to happen? And so At this point, we'll start doing the transcription to whatever medium, right? And in this case, we'll do blog. We can do, oops. Well, that's not helpful. We'll just retype it. Transcription to blog. Let's say we have transcription to newsletter. A transcription. Again, a lot of this is repetitive to, let's say, a short script, right? So let's say later on you want to do actually short videos through completely AI videos and stuff like that. Might as well do the script ahead of time so you have it ready. So we'll call that. Let's do transcription to maybe carousel, right? Maybe we'll call this the text. We have to, maybe let's say it comes up with text and then we approve that text before it actually creates the actual images themselves. Let's say we got transcription to, let's say we have our text post, right? That we mentioned earlier. And then also we have the text and image post. This is pretty much just whatever you can think of that you want to convert or transform, we want to be able to do, right? So transcription to text and image post, right? Let's see. What else can we think of? We'll get back to more transcriptions later, but right now, well, we have transcription to carousel text. We also have transcription to short script. Well, maybe later on we might want to have short script convert into the actual video, right? So maybe that'll be a vertical video, and then you have an automation that does that. We also probably want carousel text, which will then convert to carousel images, right? And so it's like whatever you can think of doing, we're going to be able to do this, right? And we're just building again the simple components right now so that later on we can just create the automations for them one by one, right, in make.com. But let's see, what else did we miss? I think we have oh yeah, we got tweets, so I forgot about those. So transcription to tweets, right? You know, you can really create as many things as you want, right? Whatever you think of, we can add to this. And if we miss something right now, that's fine. We can always go back and add more, right? Because like what really happens is even though we're creating these right now at the moment, none of them are active until we actually build the automations, right? And so let's go ahead and delete these again to keep everything clean, nice and simple. I want to probably also let's just say what I want is a way to kind of organize this. So hold on. Since these are custom actions, let's create a formula here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to name this the custom formula ID, or the custom action ID. This way we can kind of keep track of our custom actions when we're using our automations. Makes things basically makes things a lot easier for us. And then of course, you know, we can kind of keep track of things based off these IDs instead of the actual full name. But in this example right here, let's say custom action, I'm just going to leave it at that label, right? And then we're going to add a specific ID for this, right? Again, right, like if you don't know specifically how to do any of this stuff, that's fine, right? Just copy and paste. And of course, if it doesn't work, like right now in this circumstance, it's not valid. Well, there's a reason for that, right? We didn't actually create an ID column right inside of here, so therefore we don't have it. So what we're gonna have to do is wait on that step, and instead what we're gonna do is we're going to do an auto number, we're going to name this one ID. And I don't really like to use this. That's why I'm going to keep it hidden in a second. Keep that formula. Again, we're going to create this one as custom action ID. Again, go back, custom action, and open that and put our ID inside of here. So now it didn't give us any errors. We can go ahead and create that field. And so now notice how all of these are labeled specifically. So like if you were to see any automations firing in the background and it's using any one of these custom IDs, you would know that these are custom actions being fired. And so what I'm going to do right here is I'm just going to hide this one because it's not that important. The next thing, and it's probably better to kind of prep these right now, is, well, every time these fire, it's going to fire a webhook to go to make.com or go to n8n or go to any platform Zapier, right? And while we build this out, we might use all of those platforms over time, right, to make things better and so forth. And so right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a URL function in here, and we're just going to name this webhook for the time being, right? Webhook URL. And we'll just create that and we'll leave it blank. When we actually create the webhooks inside of make.com, we will paste them here so the system knows to fire that specific webhook. Okay. Again, right, I like to have another column specific for, is it active, right, at this moment? And if it is, then it's working. If it's not, that means I need to work on it later on, right? We're just going to create that. And so in this entire process, like what you probably want is the ability to create idea to transcription as soon as possible. Same thing with your audios. Maybe your video to audio and then your audio converts to transcription later on. If you're not doing blogs, you probably don't want to do blogs. Same thing with newsletters and stuff like that, right? It just depends on how you want to do. If you're just focused primarily on social media, right, at this moment in time, not including your websites and your newsletters and your emails and stuff, well, you probably want more like carousel, text post, text and image, and of course, you know, tweets, let's say, and then later on we'll be able to convert the other things into the actual content, like the images and the videos, and we'll show you how to do that. But you know, pick and choose how you want to do this, right? What you want to work on. We'll be going through all of these, so keep that in mind over the next, you know, coming weeks and so forth. So that's what we'll continue to do with you guys live. So that's as far as custom actions go. Well, there's going to be workflows. So what I mean by a workflow is what happens when we upload that idea right in here, or what happens when we upload an audio file. What do we want to happen automatically for us? Like, do we want the idea to fire and convert a transcription automatically and create us the blog and the newsletter and the short script and the carousel and the text and so forth, right? Or do we want only one thing to fire at once, right? If we wanted only one thing to fire at once, we would just use these and we wouldn't use workflows, right? But that's why we create workflows, right, to be more advanced and have multiple custom actions firing at the same time. Because why not? If you have a transcription already created from an idea or created from an audio file or a video file, right, why not create multiple pieces of content simultaneously without you doing anything, right? So that's why we created the workflows feature. Now again, right, how are we going to build this out? It really depends on the brand, it depends on the channels, it depends on kind of everything that's going on, right? The way I see it is, well, we're going to have multiple things firing, right? So let's build out the workflows. Let's go ahead and clear all of these right now at the moment since we don't need them. And we're just going to call this, you know, this specific workflow itself. Let's go ahead and name this workflow. Yes, so you could save that. So again, there's going to be multiple things here, right? Well, we said earlier we're going to take an idea and we're going to convert it to a transcript, right? So that's the workflow. Well, what do we want to happen when this actually, you know, this actual main workflow fires? Do we want everything else to fire simultaneously, or do we only want, let's say, 3 of the transcriptions to whatever fire, or do we want all of them, right? This is where it becomes solely up to you how you want things to happen inside your business, right? Now, I'm always for the more the merrier, right? So I want, if this is going to fire, well, I want all of these to fire, and so forth, right? And so how we're going to do this right now is we kind of need to know, well, number one, who's the brand, right? That's going to be on that specific workflow. We probably want to need to know like specific webhooks and so forth. So there's a lot of nitty-gritty stuff at this point in time that we kind of got to understand here to keep ourselves organized. But at the same time, we do want to mention who are our, like, let's say, child workflows. So for example, idea to transcription is a main workflow, but let's just say audio to transcription, or sorry, transcription to blog might be a child workflow in this circumstance, right? And so how many child workflows will we have will be solely dependent on the main workflow itself and how you decide to operate it. So let's go ahead, and this is what I'm going to do. Hold on. So let's go ahead, and we're going to pull some records from our custom actions over here. So notice there's going to be this feature that says link to another record, right? We're going to be able to link to another record, and at the same exact time, we're going to choose the custom actions, and then we're also going to name this one our child workflows. Okay. So child workflows, but we're also going to allow linking to multiple records because we want to be able to choose more than one in this circumstance. Let's create this field, and it's going to ask us to look up and bring all this information with us. Yes, we're going to want a lot of this information. So in this circumstance, we're going to take the action name, you know, well, actually, I take that back. Hold on a second. Because do we want all this inside of here? The next thing you know, it clutters the system. Like, but what really do we need inside of our workflows, right? And so, yes, I like the custom action ID, and I do like the webhook URL. I don't really care that to show the active and the regular old ID in here. It just takes up too much space and it's a waste of time. So I'm just going to add those fields in here. And so as you can see now, there's 3 plus the original child workflows. And if I click on child workflow, you're going to see all of the custom actions that we have over here are now going to populate, right? And so that's kind of the idea behind this, right? And then we pretty much need to choose now at this moment in time, what do we want to fire here? So idea to transcription, we might want transcription to blog, right? We also might want the next one, which is transcription to newsletter. We might want as well transcription to short script, and so forth. You kind of get the idea, right? You're pretty much going to stack things how you'd want things to fire, right? The moment this workflow fires, then this one fires simultaneously and creates multiple below it, right? But at the same time, like, if you were to just do a transcription to blog, well, what would you want to happen? Or if you had a transcription to carousel, what would you want to happen in this circumstance? So let's just use another example here, and we'll say transcription to, I just misspelled that, of course, carousel, right? And this is going to be the text. Well, what happens when that actually fires? And you can have it fire from here too as well. So just because you have transcription to carousel text here firing, what's going to happen is if it fires on this end, well, now we want the next stage to fire as well. So, which is carousel text to carousel images. And so the first workflow fires the child workflows, and then it also, let alone, fires this one, which fires the next child workflow. That's kind of how we want to have things continuously firing inside of the system, right? Again, right, like, you might not want all of this to happen, right? You might not have all of these things built out. And so right now we're pretty much just showcasing the possibilities that could happen right now at the moment as we're thinking through this together, right? But let's actually rename this real quick. Transcription leave it at that, right? But we're going to get back to the workflows, of course, as we start building out more and more things, right? And then we can kind of stack things how we want them to be, because we might not like what's available right now at this moment, right? We might not want this to happen immediately once the first child workflow fires. And so for now, we're just going to go ahead and delete this for a second, and we can come back to this and like kind of like rebuild it and so forth. Which kind of brings us over to the main thing, the content, right? Well, if all these automations are firing in the background and everything is being created for you, well, we need to be able to put all that data here, right? Now, again, like this is where the content could become really, really messy if you do not keep yourself organized, right? Because there can be a lot of content being created. Not every piece of content will be posted, right? So think about that for a second, right? Let's just say you take an idea and it converts it to a transcription, or you take an audio note and it converts it to a transcription. Are we going to post that transcription anywhere? Probably not, right? That's a piece of content that we are going to be using for repurposing, right? Because we can't repurpose directly from an audio file to, let's say, a Facebook post, right? That wouldn't really make sense. Like how would you even do that? Well, you need to cut it down to little processes, right, in between. And so it's like, we're going to take that audio file, we're going to convert it to a transcription. Hell, we might even not only create a transcription, we might take that transcription and convert it into like main summary points that we can use later on for like tutorials and stuff. And so are we still posting those things? No, we're not, right? Those things aren't being posted on your social media or on your channels or on your blog or on your website, because they are main components we are using. They're basically the ingredients, right? We need to have that finished product. So you're going to have a lot of things inside of the content, but only some of them will be posted, right? And what we call those, we can call them waste. We can call them like closed workflows. We can call them, you know, maybe an archive folder of just data that we can always reuse later on in the future. And so there's multiple ways we're going to go about this, right? But the way I like to do it is because there's so many things that's going to be inside of your content. And once you start building this out with me, you're going to see that there is a lot. Okay. And you're going to be like, well, it's impossible to do all in one sitting. And there is a reason for that, right? Let's just say a Facebook post. Well, what does a Facebook post need? Okay, well, a Facebook post could have an image, it could not, right? And so what you typically need is the body text, right? The actual content itself that goes inside the text. You could also have a headline, right? If you're doing, let's say, an Instagram post, well, you probably have not only body text and a headline, but you could also have an image, but you could also have hashtags. And so it's like, how many pieces do we need inside of there, right? And so if you were to look at that, what would that entail? So you kind of need a thought process, right? And so the way I like to kind of do things here, as well as we're going to go ahead with IDs again, because it's good to keep ourselves organized. But if we do another auto number, we're just going to name this one ID. And we paste that in here, and then we're going to go ahead and add another formula in this circumstance. The formula, we're going to name this content ID. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is, again, just to keep myself organized, so I know which piece of content am I referencing at a point of time. Because I can take any piece of content and reformat it, repurpose it into any other piece of content later on. And so that's pretty much the entire basically idea of this entire system, right? We want to be able to do those type of things. So again, right, we're going to do right here, content, we'll just name it, you know, content for C. And then we can do our ampersand and put in our brackets, leave it ID, and there you go. All right. Oops. Go ahead and put those brackets in here. All right. I'm going to go and create that field. Now, at the same time, I kind of want, you know, the ID to kind of be like the main thing. Like, it's not important what the name is. It's not important what's really going on in this entire thing. What's really important is knowing a starting point, right? And so maybe having this right here as the primary field is the most important thing for us at this moment. So we know what's going on. We know exactly everything that's going on inside the system. The ID, again, we could probably hide this. We don't really need to see the actual ID anymore since we're using the primary right here. But let's kind of go through this, right? Because we're going to have multiple things inside this entire system, right? Let's start with the beginning stuff. We're going to have an idea, right? Here's our idea. The next thing we're going to have is, let's say we have, let's do an upload, right? So let's say we uploaded an actual audio file, right? Or maybe an actual video file. The way we can do it, there's multiple ways. We can do attachment, we can do base URL, but for this purpose, we'll just throw in an attachment, right? And we'll call this an audio file, right? So we're going to be able to take all this piece of content and we're going to be able to repurpose them later on. So we'll do that again, another attachment, we'll call this video file, right? And again, some of these we won't use, some of them we will, some of them will be shown in front of us the entire time, depending on the menus and the views that we want to see. If we care about the behind the scenes, yeah, we'll look at it, right? But if we care about the actual final product, then we probably don't care about any of this stuff, and so we don't want to see them in certain views. Right now, we're just going to be building out pretty much everything, and then we'll kind of go from there. And notice how I'm building this out. Again, I will always build this out based off what we're thinking at the moment, right? Because there's no right or wrong way to do this, okay? It's all a thought process at the moment. The next thing I can think of is, well, okay, is there going to be a title? Is there going to be a description? Is there going to be hashtags? Is there going to be so many things, right? So it's like, I kind of want to know everything that goes into a particular post. Now, it doesn't mean every type of post or social media or blog are going to use them all. It just means we need to have them there as placeholders, right? And so in this case, let's go ahead and create a long text. Well, we can do this one. This is more of like a description. So we'll do more of like a short form. So let's just do a description. So description of that post is what we're going to call this one. We might create a long text for, let's say, the body text of an actual post itself. And so let's see, what should we call it exactly? If we're actually like really looking at a Facebook post, we'll just call it body text. Why not, right? Body text. We'll go ahead and create that. The next thing is, well, maybe there is going to be post titles. Okay, well, if there's a post title, what are we going to have inside of here? So post title. And again, like a blog might use a post title, but a tweet might not. So keep that in mind. The next thing we're going to need is what? Well, the way I like to see it is we're going to have all of this data being converted into other pieces of data, right? So for example, we're going to have that attachment here, which is that audio file, converted to a transcription, right? And because it's converted into a transcription, we need a place to hold this transcription, right? We need a place to hold the blog post that's created. We need a place to hold every piece of data, not just what you see right in front of you as a text format, right? Because like, if you're familiar with using Airtable or Make.com or Google Drive or any one of these things, you'll notice that some things cost more in regards to storage, so it's more efficient to go different routes, right? And so technically, even though I put the audio file here and the video file as attachments, I don't actually want to use that later on. I actually want to use a Google Drive, or matter of fact, I'd rather use a server, right, to make things more efficient. So in this circumstance, I really want to like kind of organize everything. If I was going to go based off of Google Drives, well, then I need what's called folder IDs. I need document IDs, right? Of, let's say, that Google Drive, of that specific document. And so like, what does that look like, right? So if I pull up, let's just say I pull up this document right here, where you're going to see this entire value right here. This is the actual ID of that particular file. And so I can always reference that at any point in time through automation, instead of having an actual document inside here, right? And therefore everything will be organized into like project folders and so forth, right? And so the way I see it is, well, if I'm creating one piece of content, well, I probably want a project folder, and inside that project folder I'm going to have a folder for like my text content, my, let's say my text, my tweets, my text and images and so forth. All my text content, my blogs, my newsletters, this might be in that folder. But then I might have another folder that's more media, right? And media is the audio file, the images, the videos, right? But it's all underneath that same project, right? And so what I'm trying to get at is we want to keep ourselves organized as much as possible through our Google Drives, as well as our Airtable, as well as our make.com. We want to keep ourselves organized as much as possible here. So, and again, right, I know it looks like we're all over the place, right? But you got to think about this for a second. If you're going to be building this from scratch, the reason why I can think this way, and I have this mentality of thinking around the box right now at the moment, is because I've done this before. I know what happens when you build something and you're like, oh shit, I forgot this. Right? And then next thing you know, you got to go and build it. Right? So what we're doing now is just thinking right now and saying, what is everything that I could possibly use right now at the moment, so that when my automations do run, I already have it pre-built, right? Or I have a placeholder for it. For example, these files, right? For example, the description, the body text, the post title, the hashtags, right? Whatever, right? And so like, let's just say we add another one for hashtags. And again, right, will every piece of content use hashtags? Probably not, right? But this is kind of the idea of what you're trying to achieve right now at the moment, right? So let's go ahead and actually start with the ideas themselves for our projects, because I kind of do want to host projects for every single new piece of content, or every single new audio file, every single new video file, every single new idea creates a whole new project, so you can always reference that project. Let me give you an example, right? So you guys kind of understand what I'm talking about at the moment. So right now I'm already doing this, right? And so if I go into my content engine right here, you'll see a few things, right? You have what I have, my imports. So I don't actually import things into Airtable. I import things into my Google Drive, and then it kind of goes from there. And then what I have is I have used content, I have templates, I have like shorts, and I have text overlays for like different projects that I have going on, right? Or different automations. But if I go inside this project folder, you'll see how many projects that I have going on, right? There's a lot. But if I go inside here as well, and I'm like, okay, let's go by last modified. Let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just say open up this one, right? Automation content creation 40+ posts daily, right? If I go inside here, what do I find? Well, I find more folders, and every single one of these projects are going to be organized the same exact way. There's going to be carousel images, there's going to be media files, then there's going to be text. Now, if I go inside the text, what's inside here? There's going to be blogs, there's going to be text and image posts, transcripts, bullet points, carousel, short scripts, newsletters, text posts. So pretty much everything is organized in a manner. And if I open up any one of these, it's going to be very specific to that, let's say, audio file, right? To that transcript and so forth, right? Same thing if I open up the media, right? Well, what's inside here? Well, it looks like there's an audio file. It looks like there's 2 images, right? Notice how this one right here is very specific. This image is meant for the blog, versus this is a text picture, means it goes for the text and image post. And so everything's kind of named accordingly, right? Even though it might have something else, like our blogs are also SEO optimized. So you'll see it always has the keyword best real estate CRM, and then it has, you know, it's meant for the blog. So even the images are going to be SEO optimized. And again, you can kind of do this for everything. And so again, let's just go into our projects again and go grab another one. Let's just say down here, I grab one. Same idea, you're gonna have your media files, your carousels. If I go inside my carousels, well, what do I have? I have 5 images. Well, what do they look like? Well, that's what they look like. They're already created from my text file, and these are now images. And so you kind of get the idea, right? The whole goal here is to have everything organized as much as possible for us. And so if we go back to, you know, our content right here, well, where are we going to house this data, right? So most likely we're going to house this data in a project, right? And so I might as well just go ahead and create a whole new project, right? ID. And so let's just call this project ID. So I know always every single new project will have its own unique ID. I also probably want to have one specific for, let's say our text posts. So text post ID. Well, before that, let's start from the beginning. So let's go with, we're gonna have our media folder ID. We're gonna have our text folder ID. We're gonna have, I think earlier we did carousel posts for like specific images, but honestly we can throw that in the media folder. It doesn't really matter. Well, let's just go and create it anyway. So carousel folder ID. Let's move this to the right. Let's go ahead and create. Now let's kind of dig deep. So now we have transcription, right? Transcription. That's the next main component, right? Because inside of the project, we're going to put these folders, right? But inside of these folders, we're going to have actual content. So we're going to have the transcription ID in here. And then we're also going to have pretty much everything, right? So the blog post, the carousel, you know, every single piece of content that we're about to start creating now needs to have its own ID. So we can always reference it. So if I just go ahead and just list them out right now at the moment, let's just start from scratch. Blog post ID. Go ahead and duplicate that. We can't do that. Let's go ahead, just duplicate it a few times because we're going to end up using these. All right, so that should be enough for now. All right, let's go ahead and edit these fields. Let's go name them something else. We're going to have our carousel ID, and this is actually the text that we want. Again, if you're not doing carousels, then you probably don't even want to add that. Let's rename this one, and this is going to be our tweet post. And then this one, let's see, will be our newsletter post ID. And then let's say we have see what else we have. If we just look at one of these, make our lives easier right now at the moment. Yeah, so text posts, text and image posts. So pretty much every single one of those is what we're going to actually add in here. So let's go ahead and edit this. Text and image posts ID. And then we'll rename this one to short script ID. There we go. Lovely. See, again, if we forgot something, we'll always go back and be like, oh shit, we forgot something and we need to build it out, right? So that's how that would work. Again, right, like there's going to be way more things than this that we're probably missing, right? Again, I'm building this off the top of my head, how I think how things should be organized. Again, if your mind might work completely different, right? And if that's the case, well, you build it how you feel you need to build it out. Let's see, we're gonna have, there's more things as well. I just remembered. So like there's gonna be the actual picture itself that goes in the blogs. There's gonna be the short video IDs. There's gonna be like different things, right? So let's go ahead and create those real quick as well since we're here. So this is gonna be post image. Yeah, we'll just do that, image ID. All right. Again, right, if you're like, oh, well, I wish it could do this, well, you pretty much just need to build the backend for it, right? Whichever works best for you and so forth. Like, notice how none of this right now has to do with auto posting. Right now we're still building out the bare bones, right? We haven't even created automations and make. We haven't even done anything. We haven't even pulled like statuses and like is that content already created or published or whatever. None of that's created right now at the moment. Right now specifically we're just trying to organize ourselves as much as possible. All right, so another thing, since we're kind of building this out, right, I also like to have direct links to the copy that we're working on, whether it's a transcript, a blog, a text post or whatever. Like, I like to have easy access. If everything's going to be inside my Google Drive, I don't want to have to just go to my Google Drive every single time. So instead, I want to have links internally in my Airtable where I can just click on it and it auto-populates, right? Same thing with my images and same thing with my media, and so forth, right? And so what I like to do in this circumstance is we're going to create an actual folder, a URL, which our automations will paste them here for us. We won't have to do it every time. We're just going to leave it as a placeholder right now and of course get back to it. So for example, we're going to have images, right? So we're going to name this one image link. Let's duplicate this a few times because we're going to have images, we're going to have text, we're going to have media, and we're going to have the actual folder itself. Like, I don't want to have to just go to the IDs, right, and try to find them that way. I want to be able to actually click on them. And so this is more for internal use. This is more for automation. So keep that in mind. Like, you want to have both functions, right? You want to be able to do things internally on your own, and you want the automation to be able to fire things. So again, this is more user friendly. This is not. But this is better for building out. So let's go right here and we're going to rename these ones as well. And so this is going to be our media links. And then we'll rename this one. This is going to be our folder link. And this one's going to be our copy. And again, this is just so that we can have more clickable things inside here. And then what we'll do is we'll probably convert those into more, what's the thing? Into actual physical buttons, right? And so we can actually do that right now that we have these created. Now, they're not going to be clickable at the moment because there's no links physically inside of here. But what we'll do is, it's very simple. You just go here and you're just going to choose a button. Where are you, button? All right, so button here all the way at the bottom. And again, we're going to name these based off of what these things are right now. So they're more clickable. We don't need to see bare links. Again, this is more decorative, more internally for us to make things look nice a bit better and so forth. So again, we're just going to call this one the copy button. And the formula here is very simple. It's going to be the exact same thing that you just named your links. Okay, so for example, the copy, well, we created one, it's called copy link. So if I put the bracket right here and I open it up, I'm just going to type copy link, and what it does is it's automatically going to know which field it's for, right? And so we'll go ahead and create that. Notice it's a little button right here. Now, is that button readable? Not really, right? Yeah, you probably want to go ahead and change this up a bit, make it a little bit more fancy or whatever, make it look nice, right? Same thing goes for the next ones, right? We're pretty much going to duplicate these again the same way we just did the links, and then we're going to rename them. So let's go ahead and rename this one, and instead of copy link this time, what are we going to use? Well, we have images, we have media, we have folders, right? And so we'll just do images, image, and we got to name it exactly to what's over there. So image link, and we'll name this one image button. We'll go ahead and save that. We'll go ahead and edit this one, and this one's going to be the media button. And so for the media link, right? Pretty much just creating buttons right now. And then again, we'll edit this one as well. And this is of course the main actual folder. So folder button of the project, right? Very specific to the project. Let's go ahead and name that folder. And then bam, right? And so basically, if I took, let's just say this is the folder right here. If I took this Google Drive link and I pasted it into, let's say, this folder right here, notice how it highlights. And so now you have an active button that works. And if I click on this button, it's going to actually open that same folder or that link or that copy or whatever, right? So again, if let's say I take this text and image post and I copy this and I move it over here to, let's say, this one, notice how it's under folder, but if I put it under the actual copy itself, it'll highlight under here. And if I click on the button, it opens up that actual text and image post. So again, what we're doing is making our lives 100% easier, more organized. You know, at the same time, you know, building, we can also make things more comfortable for ourselves and how we operate our business. So again, there's plenty of more ideas that you could possibly do. Right now, we're just creating these as templates. Now, again, I like to kind of differentiate things inside of the system. You know, change some colors a bit and so forth, just so you know things are a little bit different. But you're more than welcome to change to whatever colors you want. So I have a nice format already, so I'm just going to change to that, and then we'll kind of go from there. Change this to black. Nope. All right, so that's how mine is, how mine looks like. Make these a little bit smaller, more organized. All right. So I know you guys might be like, well, why are you walking? Why are you going around, you know, and going backwards, right? Why didn't we just start with the content first? Well, the reality is, like, we don't have content at the moment, right? We don't have data to convert into other things. And so the reality is we need to just think, how do we want things to go about, and slowly start building them out one by one, right? And the way I like to think is reverse engineer everything, right? Well, what do I want my content to be? And that's why this is how we did that first. We spoke about brands first as well. It's like, well, we're going to be working on brand, but we might also have brand X, right, later on in the future. And if brand X is in here, let's say we're helping somebody else's company, well, we need to be able to like organize that as well. And then of course, what channels are we going to be posting to, what type of pieces of content, and then of course, what workflows that we'll be working on as well. And of course, the workflows are probably the hardest thing in this entire thing to probably understand. This is why we're going to go slower on the workflows for everyone else. The custom actions are pretty much the easiest thing, as well as the content. So keep that in mind. So now that we have all of this inside of here, like there could be different ways you can intake content before you actually transform them into anything else, right? So like we mentioned before, there could be a physical idea, right, that you have that you might type in, and you wanted to give you a full-blown transcript and summary based off that idea and your branding, right? Which later could be created into multiple pieces of content, right, of your choice. Like I remember I have a friend, right? I met him one time in Tampa, and he was like, "Well, you know, I'm really famous as an influencer, but someone invited me to their bar and they want me to bartend." Okay, I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, why don't you just, you know, auto blast to all your audience that you're going to go here to this bar?" And then of course, you know, he's getting a percentage of the proceeds here. So wouldn't it be nice if I could just, from what a thought or an idea or a voice note, be like, "Oh, hey guys, I'm going to be here tonight," and then automatically the machine pretty much generates everything and auto posts it to every channel possible, right, instantly. And so it's like, how do we go about doing that, right, as far as like inputs and as far as ideas go? And so there's multiple ways to do it. Like you could do it through forms, you could do it through actually physically typing in the idea right here. Again, you could do it by physically throwing in an audio note, right? So like in this case, there's an audio note right here, not the wrong one, but here, let's go back. So we have imports for like your audio files and your video files. There's no right or wrong answer, right, in this circumstance. But what I do kind of want to do is I want to start building this out all over again, right? We're going to start with all new Google Drive, all new folders, all new everything to kind of house our data, right? So that we can reproduce it in the long term. So right now we already have all of this, right? I don't want to use what's there, right? The whole goal with this is to start from scratch with you guys. So what I'm gonna do, let's just go in and create a whole new folder, right? And we're gonna go ahead and call this built content engine. I suggest you guys create a Google Drive folder as well. So built content engine, this is gonna be version 2 since I already have the first version. We're gonna go ahead and create that, right? And inside of built content engine, I probably want to have a folder for my imports, right? So, and again, right, why are we doing this? Let's understand this for a second. Well, I could upload my files to Airtable, but if I did that, then I would bog down the system. The system becomes slower, right? And then I have to pay more with Airtable. Well, the nice thing is Google Drive, I mean, they're get more storage. Well, how much does that cost? It's basically nothing compared to Airtable, right? Whatever the cost Google has, Airtable is more expensive, right? So we don't want to house our data inside of Airtable whatsoever, right? Text is fine, but the moment we get into pictures, like high-end pictures, the moment we get into audio files, and then especially heavy videos, we definitely don't want to get into there, right? So keep that in mind, right? So inside of these imports, we probably want the ability of putting in our audio files, right? And then based off these audio files, well, hold on, we also want to upload video files, right? Which will then ultimately be converted to audio files and then converted to transcriptions and so forth. But if you think about this as your base, whether you're on your phone or you're on your computer, you can upload a video or an audio file, right? So, I mean, if you're using your phone, you would just upload it to the Google Drive app. Now, again, can you do this with iCloud instead of Google? Yeah, you can do it with that. So you determine what your choice of operation is here at this point. If you use Dropbox, right? It doesn't really matter at this point. If you have a server, use your server, okay? And so everybody's gonna have this completely different than somebody else, right? The whole main point at this time is to really just like, how do we want to keep our data organized, but also how do we want to view our data, okay? Because let's say we create a quote unquote text post for Facebook. Well, where do we want that stored? Do we want it stored on a text file, a Word doc, a Google Doc, right? What's more relevant for your type of business model, right? Like, what are you used to right now at the moment? And so we all know, like, Google Docs, for example, is really easy to use. The Google Drive is really easy to use, so at least for me. And so that's what I like to use on a day-to-day, right? And what I really want to happen is anytime I import or I throw an audio file in here, I want it to convert to a transcription. Every time I throw a video file in here, I want it to convert to an audio and then convert to a transcription and so forth, right? Like that's the goal the entire time. So that's how that's going to work. The next thing is I'm going to want a folder for all my projects to house, right? Because again, I don't want to see my entire Google Drive folder here just like spit out with a bunch of content, right? That's not organized. Like, you could do it that way and you can have all your content just go to a folder and then that's that. Or you can be the one that keeps things organized and really just like, exactly what's going on at all points in time. And of course, there's more things you could build out. Right now, I'm not going to build them out as far as like templates and so forth. That's not important at this stage in time. What's really important for us is taking our first piece of content, right, and showing you how it works, right, using make.com. Again, the goal here is not to be perfect, right? The goal here is not to make it branded. It's not to do anything at the moment until you get that piece of content from an audio file, let's say, to a text file, right? At the moment, like that's how we want it to work, right? And so let's start with that today, right? Let's actually jump into that portion of things, since we have bare bones at the moment. Again, right, this is just going to take a certain file and it's going to upload it, and then we can use that content later for whatever, right? For our actual posting and so forth. So if we're looking at this and we go to, let's say, make.com here, actually let me close this one since we're no longer using this. Here, let's just go to the beginning, because most people are going to be like, how do I do this, right? So make.com, here, let's move this over here, get it out of the way. So create an account. Again, they I think they have free, I'm not even sure, but if you're going to take this seriously, you're probably going to end up paying for it. It's not that expensive, but go ahead and log into your account. Create an account, log into your account. You're probably going to see all of this pretty much blank, right? Your usage is going to be blank and so forth, right? So, I mean, you can see right now how much I'm spending right now just on this platform, right? 34 bucks. It's not that much, but how many operations does it do for me, right? We just renewed this month, so you can kind of get the idea. But I use basically around 40,000 operations, but I use it more than just the content engine. I use it for my AI functionality. I use it for builds functionality of my chatbots and so forth, right? So keep that in mind. You know, we use it for different things. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our scenarios over here to the left, and I actually want to create a whole new folder, right? And in this case, we're going to call this our built content. You know what? We're just going to call it KE, built content engine. This is going to be version 2. We're going to be starting completely from scratch, right? You know, completely from scratch. Canvas, nothing is here. I mean, you see we had so many things already pre-built initially, right? The goal again is to rebuild everything that I've shown you guys. 1,000 pieces of content I'm posting per month right now, we're going to build it from scratch. Okay, so let's get right into this, right? What's the first thing that's going to happen? Well, most likely we're going to have some sort of idea, right? Or we're going to have some sort of video. We're going to have some sort of audio file. So those are really the 3 main components that we need to create at this moment to actually see what's going on, right? Now, when I start building this out, it's going to start getting really, really technical. Okay, so if you're not tech savvy, you can always rewatch, you can rewind, you can do what you need, you can just copy and paste and do what I'm doing. Everything you saw prior was me literally typing in a spreadsheet, pretty much. This is not the same case. But we're going to go ahead and create a new scenario. And what we're going to do at this point in time is, to make it very, very simple for everyone and explain how make.com works, is there's a starting point. Okay, think of this as the trigger. If this happens, do this, right? So that's pretty much how every single automation ever is pretty much created, right? If this were to happen, what are we going to do, right? And so what I'm going to do right now is we're going to say, if a video file, right? Or let's change that. If an audio file, let's make it simpler, right? If an audio file is created, then we need to do this. Okay, or if an audio file is inside this folder, we need to do this, right? So let's actually look at that, right? So if I'm going to build this out from scratch, I need to first search for a file, right? Like that's kind of what we need to do. We need to be watching for files in a specific folder, right? And so if I were to go to my Google Drive here as the trigger, and we notice the very first one where it says watch for files in a folder. So that's what we need to do, right? And so if I click on this, notice it's going to say if I create a time, my drive, whatever folder, so forth, right? You know, you kind of just need to know what folder did we create. Well, we created the folder here. It's the imports folder, and it's also the audio files is the one that we need. We also have an ID here at the top. So we can also kind of take that if we needed to go down that route. But make.com makes things easier for us. We could just choose the folder, right? So I have all of these things in here, built content magic, right? And then I did create a new folder for you guys live, built content engine, v2. But then we also have an imports folder, right? And then we have audio files, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to watch for when a file drops inside here. And then we're going to do something, okay? Now again, I'm going slow for a reason so that everyone can kind of do this with us. What you'll see online is everyone creates these YouTube videos and they're so fast and they kind of cut things up to make the video more high quality and whatever. This is a live for a reason, okay? I'm literally doing it with you guys, learning at the same time half the time. So keep that in mind. As far as limitation, I typically cap it at 10. Again, you can have 100 automations running at the same time, thousands of operations at the same time, but realistically, how many audio files are you going to put in here? It just depends on your workflow, right? So for now, I'm just going to keep it at that. What type of files to watch for, you can keep as all, because the only thing we should be uploading in here is audio files, okay? And then of course, by created time is fine. It doesn't really matter. So if we choose from now on, this thing will always continuously run, okay? Like it'll keep checking every 15 minutes, charge you per transaction and so forth, right? What I like to do is just choose manually, right? This way it kind of allows me to kind of like see what's going on at any point in time. And also it's easier for testing, right? And we'll showcase that better, of course, as we kind of get into it. We can change this at any point in time. Also, same thing, it will run at regular intervals, but I also want to change it to on demand so it doesn't continuously run in the background, right? Not yet. So what do we want to do once we watch these folders? Well, what do we want to do, right? Most likely we probably want to create something in our Airtable database, right? So that we have you know, that data actually populate our Airtable, and then of course we can use that as reference and so forth, right? But at the same time, do you want an audio file in there? Well, if you're planning on doing a podcast later on, you probably want the audio file in there, okay? If you don't, then of course don't, right? So we could possibly skip that step, but at the same time, it's just better to follow along if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So Airtable. So we're going to create a record inside of our Airtable, okay? Now, when you first come here, you're going to have to always relaunch your connections, and the same thing goes for your Google Drive. You might have to like actually sign in, like we're about to end up doing right now, because for whatever reason, it doesn't want to work. And so we didn't actually name our entire database right here. So let's name this one our base, and we're going to call this built content engine v2. All right, so this way we're going to be able to find it and so forth. But let's go ahead and click on add connection type. Let's do the OAuth and go ahead and save that. It's going to pop up something you probably can't see, but you got to grant access. Let me see if I can switch this. Okay, let's do it this way. Screen capture. All right, maybe you can see this. Yeah, so you should be able to see this right now. Basically, you're gonna grant access, right? So we're gonna add a base. Well, what base are we currently working on, right? There's so many of them in here. We want the v2, right? That's the one we just created, we just renamed at the moment, and we're gonna grant that access. But that's as simple as that, right? That's how that would work. So once you do that, it's already connected. You're just gonna click here and you're gonna choose the base again. And then of course it's gonna ask you what table, okay? So this is where it's like, okay, well, where are we putting this content, right? you know, like where does everything need to be housed in a sense, right? Well, earlier we created inside here, if I go back into view 2, our actual content. We also have the audio, we have the idea, we have a description, body text, whatever, so forth. So what we're going to do in this circumstance is pretty much the same thing. We're going to choose the content one because this is where all of our content goes. Regardless if the content is meant to be posted or not, we need all of our content to go here for now, right? And so one thing I missed, and we can fix this in a second, but is I forgot the source type, meaning is this an audio file? Is this an idea? Is this a video, right? So we can kind of keep things organized inside of our content later on. So let's go ahead and add that. So we need a probably single select in this circumstance, and we want, is this a video file or video upload? All that. Is it an an idea? Is it an audio? Like what are we doing right now, right? And so we'll just call this one audio upload, and then we probably also want idea / idea form if we choose to create the form later on. So now we have our select, but because we just made that modification, it doesn't know that we actually created it in here. So we're gonna have to refresh, and hopefully, yep, okay, so it created it right here at the bottom, but we also forgot to rename it. So let's go ahead and edit this and name this as our source type. Yeah, so source type, so we can always know, like, hey, what type of main type of source is this, so we know what to trigger later on if for additional if functions and automations. But since we just did this, let's go ahead and refresh it again, and now we have our source type. So if I remove the mapping, we'll now be able to select the drop down. So this is an audio upload, right? This is primary for anything. Now we know that this audio file that we just searched for in this thing, we're going to create a record and name it as the source type audio file. We're also going to probably give it a name for the description, so we know, from the file that it just watched in here, what is the actual name of that audio file. Okay, again, like, if you don't know what I'm doing right now, I'm basically just picking the name from, notice how this says number 1 and this is number 1. So picking the name of the actual file and putting it as the description inside of our Airtable, so I know what file was that. Okay, what audio file was that? What was the name of the audio file? So we can kind of keep ourselves organized. Again, there's going to be a lot more things inside of here, right? As far as statuses and so forth that we probably need to go back and fix. But at the time being, we're trying to keep things very, very simple right now at the moment, and then we'll continue making it bulkier and bulkier and bulkier, right? So let's go ahead and save that, right? So the moment it finds a file in here, it searches, and it's an audio file, it's going to create a record right here, okay? The next thing we probably want to do is, well, we probably want to create our project, right? We want to create our media files and like every single folder and keep ourselves organized from now, right? So every time a new audio file is created, we're going to create a whole new project and keeps ourselves organized, right? So very simple, right? We're going to go ahead and click on the plus sign. We're going to choose Google Drive again, but this time we're going to create a folder, okay? So if we choose create folder, it's going to ask us for the new file location, right? So if I go inside here, again, very simple. We're going to click on the main folder, wherever we're at. We're going to search for the Content Engine version 2, and then we're going to search for projects this time. And then it's going to ask us for a project name, okay? Now, the project name here, the easiest way to kind of like really go about this, right, is to, either name it the project or name it the audio file or whatever. Now, how should I say this? Like, we could just right away just go ahead and use the name of the actual file for now, right? Since we don't actually have a project name created. So let's just say, because we already have project ID, we'll be using that later. For now, we're just going to choose the name, right, from the very first one. And we're going to use that to create it. Later on, we'll probably try to keep this a little bit more organized, a little bit more name sensitive and so forth. One thing really important here, you do want to make sure your share folder here is active and reader is enabled and anyone is a type. The reason being, well, whoever is using your Airtable, they need to be able to read the data, okay? In fact, you'll notice that some of the things that we have in here gives us the ability to read and write and have more access than that. But basically, that's what you're giving permission to right at this moment. Now, after we create that folder, well, I kind of do want to kind of keep things a little bit more organized right here, because I don't really know what's going on. If I just look at this, it says create folder. So if we rename this thing right here, we'll be able to rename the actual module. I'm going to actually name this as project folder, right? And you can name it whatever else you want to do, but in this case it says create a folder and it says project folder, so I know exactly what this automation is. So later on when I go inside here, I don't have to be like, oh, well, what was this, right? So that's the point. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create another folder. Again, very similar process. We're going to go ahead and create a new folder. This time it's going to be the media folder, right? It's going to be inside of the project folder. Now, the problem is right now, at the moment, we don't have a project folder, right? Well, sorry, we don't have an actual folder or an actual project created inside of the project folder, okay? And so, like, it doesn't know where to house it. And so what is the actual solution for that? Well, one, you could just name it, right? Which is what we're going to do. To just kind of keep it more organized. At the same time, like, there's not really, you know, again, right, like naming sensitivity and stuff like that is really up to you. Instead, what I'd like to do is, since we just create the folder here, well, I want it to link to that same folder ID that we just created over here. Right, this makes my life easier. It makes sure that and this is the same folder ID that we're going to take later on and update our Airtable so we can always go back to it. And so this way just makes life easier for me right now. Right now, we're also going to just name this the media folder or media files or whatever. I think, what did we name it right now inside of here? So it's just media link. Okay, that's fine. We'll just name it media files for now. And again, if we need to go back, we can go back. But share folder is going to be yes, reader, and anyone needs to be selected at this point in time. So that's another folder. But again, let's go ahead and rename this one right here so we know that we are targeting the media files in this case. Next thing we need to do is basically create a folder for the text, right? All the text files and stuff like that. Because if you remember, if I went back into the previous one, you'll see that we had project, then we had media files, we had text files, we had carousel files, and so forth, right? And so right now at the moment, I don't need to create the carousel because not everyone will end up doing it. But I do need my media, like my images and my videos, to be separate from my text. Looks better, feels better, it's a little bit more organized. So again, we're going to go ahead and create another folder, right? So we're going to create this, create a whole new folder again. Again, same idea. We're going to choose the new folder location based off of the folder ID that we had in 3. So don't get this confused. Notice how this says 4 right here? Well, we actually want the actual project folder. So I need to scroll down and go to the project one and get that same folder ID. If you make this mistake, it'll create the actual new folder inside of the media one. So keep that in mind. If you're okay with that, you can do that. But for now, this is going to be for our text files, right? They're just going to go inside here. Again, we want to give share access, reader, and anyone. And then it's as simple as that. So let's go ahead and rename this again, so we know exactly what's going on here. So text files, right? All right, now that we've created all the folders, we need to kind of organize already what we already have inside here. And so the audio file that was already in the import, we don't want to keep it in the import. Because if we keep it in the import, then, you know, if we add more or we run this again later on in the future, then the import file will still stay in there. And so what we need to do is actually move it from there, and we need to be able to put it inside the project media folder, right? This way, kind of again, it keeps things organized for us with what's going on. So if we do that, and again, we select Google Drive, you're going to find in here a move a file folder. So let's look for that one. So move a file / folder, right? This one says to trash. We don't actually want that one. Let's see if I can find it. So move a file / folder, move a file or folder to a different location in Google Drive. That's the one we want. And so again, it's going to say select folder, you know, or file or whatever, right? We're going to find the file. The file ID in this circumstance is going to be the one that we had all the way over here that we found, right? The one that we searched for. So if we find that file that we search for, well, then that's the one that we want. So we just got to look for the you know, the Google Drive one. So it's probably gonna be the very first one all the way at the bottom. Okay, so this is the first one where it says 1, and we want that file ID. Okay, so file ID is what it's asking for. We're gonna give it the file ID. And so now it's gonna ask, well, we want the new drive location. Well, where are we gonna put it? Well, same idea. We're gonna map it to the media files, because an audio file should go inside the media files. If you plan on doing any other type of organization, then you would base it based off your organization. But for now, this is what we're going to do. So again, this right here is the media file is 4. So we just need to find the actual folder location ID, the folder ID, sorry, for the media, right? And so let's look for 4. So this is 4. And again, we found the folder ID right here. This way, everything's organized, everything's intact, we know where our files are at, and so forth, right? Of course, the next stage is really just to update the record that we initially created inside here with the file and all of these new links, right? All these new links that we created, because, again, we want to be able to click on them inside of our system. So if we go over here, we're going to go back to Airtable. We're going to be updating a record this time. So update a record. And again, it should be connected to the one that you already connected before. Select, you know, version 2. And then it's going to ask us for the table. It's going to be the content again. Okay, so record ID here, it's always going to ask for a record ID, so it knows which record to specifically update inside your system, right? If you click on this, record ID will always be your Airtable. So if you scroll down, we only have one other Airtable inside of here. Right, so here's your Airtable, and notice how it has an ID right here. So that's the one we're going to select. Now, there's going to be some things that we need to update inside of here. For example, our media links and so forth, right? So if we scroll down, you're going to find media folder IDs, you're going to find text folder IDs, and so forth, right? Well, we just created all of those, okay? So if we go ahead and let's say media folder ID, that's the first, or sorry, project ID is the very first one. Well, we created that one right here, right? And so that's what we're going to actually, you know, label it as. So let's go ahead and choose project ID as 3, right? So let's find 3. Going down in here, that's 5, that's 4, this is 3, and there's our folder ID. We can go ahead and paste it in here. So for future reference, if we do plan on doing any automations to this project, it always knows to look through this folder ID, okay? Now again, we have media folder ID. Well, same exact idea. We're already on 3 right now. We want to switch to 4, right? So 4, we're going to choose the folder ID. We're basically keeping everything organized, everything we just created back into our Airtable. And then here we have our text folder ID. same idea, right? We're going to go ahead and just choose the text folder, which is 5. So text folder ID. And so there's those, but now like we also have like the actual links that we created earlier, because now we want it to be more user friendly, not just for automation purposes. And so we have our image links, we have our media link, we have our folder link. I like to link the folders, right? As in like the project folder, as well as the media. I don't like to link the text, right? The text, I'd rather do it based off of copy. And copy is that very specific object. For example, the transcription, for example, the blog post, the text post, the tweet, the whatever, that will be the actual copy per se. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to update the folder link as well as the media link. And then the image, when we do create images, we'll also have the image that we can click on too. So for now, all we're going to update is the media as well as the folder at this point in time. So project folder is number 3. So if I go back down to number 3 and make sure I'm selected on folder link. Yeah, so number 3. So let's scroll down. What we don't want is the ID anymore, because we want to be able to click on it. And so we have here what's called a web view link. If you click on the web view link, that's what allows you to click, right? And so that's exactly what we want. The same thing with the media link right here. This is going to be for.webviewlink, right? So if I scroll back up to 4 and select web view link, now it's right here, right? And so, you know, there could be other things that you could add in here and so forth. I think that's good enough for now at the moment, because right now we don't want to actually physically upload the audio file to our system. Instead, we want to be able to just have links, right? Where we can reference later on and do stuff. But that should be it for now. Let's go ahead and click save. And let's go ahead and save this at the bottom. Let's go ahead and rename this. And this is going to be our import audio file for now. We'll just call it that for now. And we could always rename. And in fact, we could just say to Airtable, right? To be a little bit more specific. But let's actually test this out, right? So, I mean, I have plenty of audio files to use as an example right now. So that's what we'll do. We'll turn this on demand on. We'll go ahead and save this. If I go to, let's say, a previous project, let's just pull one out, since we already had plenty inside of here. So let's just say I click on this first one. Let's go to the media files. Let's go ahead and take this audio file that we have right here. And let's go back to our new folder right here for imports. If I go into the audio files and I paste this, and again, you could be on your phone and uploading a file, and it operates the same exact way, right? Notice the name, though, it will take as is. So let's make sure we remove this copy. I'm not worried about the ending right now at the moment. We can always modify that later. But this is a specific audio file. Now, if I go back here and I click run once, what should happen? It should take the file, it should create those folders that we exactly asked for, and it should update our Airtable, right? And so if I go back to our Airtable, what did it do? Okay, let's take a look at this for a moment. So it created a description for us. It gave us project IDs right here. Everything was created us a media link, a folder link, and it also created us 2 active buttons. Well, if I click on this folder button right now, notice I gave us a source as well. If I click on this button, it takes us to that new project, right? So projects, the name of the file was called automate content creation. And inside here, you're going to find the media files, which now has that audio file because it's no longer in here in the imports. Notice how it got removed. And then, of course, it created the text files folder. So later on, when we do actually create text files and more media content, they would automatically be thrown into the same project. So very simple. Like, again, right, if you're not doing content creation, this also works for other business models. right? If you're like, let's say you're a TC, a transaction coordinator, and your job is to keep yourself organized through different projects and different deals you're working on real estate, well, this is something really, really important when we just created this workflow, right? This simple automation keeps your life organized, right, to the maximum. And so that's how we would do the audio file. Well, you know, like there could be more things, you know, as well. Like if I actually click on the media button right here, where is it going to take me? It's going to take me very specifically to that media file, right? Or files in this instance. So that's just, you know, something that we just built out real quick. I think it's cool. Again, like you probably don't want to see all these things, right? You probably want to hide them later on and stuff. But for now, we're going to keep everything bare and open, you know, pretty much bleeding in front of us as we build this out. And we can always hide things later on. Now, this is just one feature, right? One input. This is not converting that input into something else yet. Like we haven't even gotten to that stage. You know, like there's many more things, like especially if we were to get to like video to audio, right? Which we will. You know, you have to use like APIs and stuff like that to be able to like convert a video file to an audio file, right? So there's more advanced tactics than that. The idea itself would probably just use ChatGPT directly and create a transcript. The audio right now, there's no need to create a transcript until we're ready for that. So like it's just a moment of like just really trying to understand like how can we get the data in here first before we start creating more content, right? And then we start building those workflows. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm sure we've already kind of gone through a lot of things right now. I do want to give a quick recap of everything that we've done, just so we get a final clear picture right now. So today we started the process of uploading an audio file as a source, right, inside of the system, so that later on we can take that audio file and turn into other pieces of content, right? Like our blog posts, like our transcriptions, like our carousel posts, like our text posts, tweets, Facebook, whatever, right? Instagram. But at the same time, we went ahead and built or started to build our custom actions of what we want things to happen. Because like right now, we have the audio file, we haven't actually done it to a transcription yet, right? An idea, we can throw an idea here right now, but it's not going to do anything until we build the transformation phase. Video to audio, same thing. We didn't build the make.com yet to showcase that. So little by little, we'll continue working on these, right? Like my goal is, you know, hopefully by next week we can, because now we've built the skeleton already, it's really just building new transformations at this point, right? Building new transformations and tweaking, building more transformations and tweaking, and eventually get to the point where we're able to build everything, and then we can start doing auto posting, okay? Because auto posting is actually not that difficult. You basically just connect all your accounts to your make.com. I mean, I can just show an example real quick just so you guys get the idea. But essentially, all you're doing is, you know, connecting. It's literally just one thing: auto post to all content, right? And you just differentiate based off the brands. And so basically, it just connects to every single one of your social media accounts inside here, and then that's that, right? But based off of, is it a vertical video, right? Is it a carousel post? You know, and then if it is a carousel post, where does it post to? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so forth, right? So you kind of get the idea. Like, these things are easy to build out. It's just more of the transformation process, I think is going to be the hardest thing for most people building out. And of course, keeping things organized in the system where everything works on the brand, works on specific channels, and works on more stacking of workflows and child workflows and such like that. So over the next couple weeks, you know, our goal is to probably finish this as soon as possible, because I don't want to drag this out so long, because the next part after this is more advanced things that we can add on to this and make it better and so forth, right? Like, I don't want to just be stuck on, you know, building this on forever and forever and forever, right? So My goal is to kind of give 2 hours every single week with you all that are watching right now. Of course, you know, if you have any questions specific to anything we're building at that point in time, don't hesitate to stop me, right? Like, I can see you guys' chat on Facebook, YouTube, and stuff like that. I can see how many people are watching us right now on the channel, and I appreciate you all for being here watching live. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me what I'm doing, because that helps me explain it more in depth for other people as well that are watching. So again, there's no right or wrong way to build this, right? You know, like, if you wanted to start from just the content and slowly build, you know, based off the moment I put a file in to what happens, you know, what happens next and so forth, you're more than welcome to. At the end of the day, you just got to think logically, right? If I want this to work, and I want to be able to do something, if this happens, do that, right? Like that's literally the complete dictionary of what automation is, right? In my opinion, if this happens, do this. Now, granted, a lot of it's AI, right, based. Well, if this triggers, use this AI to do this, and then if this you know, if the solution comes out from the AI, then send it over here. So if this happens, do that. It's literally the entire process, right? And then and again, the point of this thing is to not just build this entire system with you guys here, so you all can post 1,000 pieces of content out per month, but also so you guys all start getting you know, a different mindset when it comes to doing anything. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? That's like a common saying. And so it's like, if you can always think of, how can I automate? How can I reduce the amount of work that I'm doing now? Or think of it in a different circumstance. How can I build something that's going to take me, let's say, more effort now, but then later on lets me to work on it for 20 minutes, whereas a normal person would take an entire month or 2 months or 3 months to get it done, right? So that's my thought process in building anything. Of course, after we're done building this, there'll be more automations, there'll be more cool things that we build it out, whether it's real estate related, whether it's marketing related. Like, there's this thing, right, where it's called vibe coding, right? This is more vibe marketing and coding, so it's kind of like in between, right? I enjoy this time. Like, I'm not only just doing this for you guys, I'm doing it for myself too, to get better and better and better, right? I'm putting myself on the spot to think this way. Because if I can think this way and think faster with you guys, you know, kind of keeping me accountable, we can build things a lot faster and so forth, instead of just waiting for them, right? Because I could always create YouTube videos and cut them up and make them look beautiful and so forth. I don't think anybody really wants that, because you can watch those anywhere, right? But with that being said, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, don't forget to drop them down in the comments section, so I always read them. Or reach out to me directly, whatever. There's plenty of links in the description if you need any assistance. My personal calendar is on there. Built is on there if you're interested in that, of course. And of course, if you want the full-blown system ready to go version 1, you can also reach out to me. A lot of people have already jumped on that. But I appreciate you all for coming today. Thank you all so much. You know, this definitely means a lot to me, and this is like my end goal, you know, where I want to be in the automation and marketing space. So I appreciate all